I will never forget the first time I saw Mike. It was my friend Lauren's 18th birthday, and we were going out for pizza at our local Italian restaurant. It was raining really hard, and we made a mad dash from the taxi into the restaurant. "Look at me," I said. "I look like a drowned rat." "Oh, you look gorgeous, Zara," said my other friend Rebecca. "You always do." We grabbed a table and sat down. I didn't know that within 5 minutes my life was going to change forever. But before I go on, make sure you like and subscribe and hit that notification bell, and your crush will finally like you back. Trust me, it really works. We were waiting for a couple more of our friends to arrive when the waiter came over to our table. "Hi, I'm Mike," he said. "I'm your waiter for this evening. Can I get you something to drink first?" I opened my mouth, but no words came out. My friends were looking at me and then back at Mike. "She'll have a Coke," Lauren said. Mike left the table and went to get our drinks. "What is wrong with you?" asked Lauren. "I think I'm in love," I said. They all laughed at me. They knew I was a hopeless romantic just waiting for love at first sight. "He is kind of cute," said Rebecca. They thought I was joking, but I was deadly serious. I don't know how, but I just knew he was the one for me. A few minutes later, Mike came over with our drinks. I looked at him and smiled. He smiled back at me. "I think he likes you too," said the girls. "You have to get his number." I have no idea where I got the courage from, but when I saw Mike was taking a break, I went straight over to him. "Can I get your number, please?" I asked him. I had never done anything like that before. What if he says no, I thought. But he said yes. We exchanged numbers, and that's how it all began. My crush was now my boyfriend. We were inseparable. I loved being a couple. We both worked long hours, but whenever we had a chance, we spent our time together. It was towards the end of winter, and I wanted to go shopping for some new clothes for spring. I was looking forward to getting into some pretty summer dresses. Mike didn't really like shopping that much, but I persuaded him to come with me. I picked out a few outfits and went to try them on. "What do you think of this one?" I asked Mike as I came out of the fitting room in a flowery pink dress. "It suits you," he said. "I'm going to get it," I replied. Mike wanted to go over to look at some books, so I went to look at the sandals. I didn't see anything I liked really, so when Mike came back and said, "Okay, are you ready?" I just nodded and we left the shop. As we walked out the shop entrance, alarms started going off and lights flashing. I looked at Mike in panic. What is that all about? I thought. Mike was looking at me in confusion too. With that, I felt a hand on my shoulder and heard someone say, "Not so fast, young lady. You've been caught." I looked at Mike. Someone had a hold of him too. "There's been a mistake," I said. "No, there's definitely no mistake," replied the man. "You two have been caught shoplifting and you're coming with us." They took us into an office and sat us down whilst they called the police. We tried explaining to them, but they didn't believe us. When the police arrived, we told them that I assumed that Mike had paid for the dress and Mike had thought that I had paid. But they didn't believe us either. They took us to the police station and locked us in a cell. We spent the night there, and the next day we were taken to court to go in front of the judge. Unfortunately, the judge didn't believe us either, and we were sentenced to 6 months in jail. I couldn't believe it. How could this be happening to us, I thought. The jail cell was dirty and cold. The mattress was hard and the sheets felt rough. I felt bad that I had gotten Mike into this trouble. It was all my fault. "I'm so sorry, Mike," I whispered to him as we lay awake in bed. "It was an accident," he said. "I know you didn't mean to steal anything." This is horrible, I thought, but at least I have Mike to help me get through it. The next morning we were woken by the guard telling us to get up for breakfast. The breakfast was disgusting. Cold porridge and lukewarm tea. I didn't want to eat anything, but Mike told me I must keep my strength up. After breakfast, we were taken out to the yard to do some exercise. The yard was full of other prisoners, and they all looked at us as we walked out. A couple of the men smiled at us, but I didn't smile back. I didn't want to make any friends here. Mike went over and started chatting with some of the men. I really didn't like the look of them. When we got back to the cell, I asked Mike, "Why were you getting friendly with them?" "I don't know," shrugged Mike. "I just thought it would make the time go much quicker if I had some friends in here." Mike started spending a lot of time with the men in the yard. I decided I would just go back to the cell after breakfast. I didn't want to get involved with them. Some of those men were real criminals. They were in jail because they had robbed a bank or attacked someone. They definitely weren't my kind of people. Mike also started spending the evenings in the communal room, watching TV or playing chess with the boys. I didn't really mind. I was happy in the cell reading my book. But one night I finished my book and looked around for something else to do. Should I go join Mike and the others, I thought? I decided I would make an effort. I headed down towards the communal room. As I approached the door, I could hear the men's conversation. I was horrified. They were talking to Mike about robbing a shop.
"It's easy," said a man with a long, dark beard. "You just take a car and drive it through the shop window. Make sure you wear a mask and no one will ever know it was you that did it."
Mike was laughing. Is he insane? I thought. I ran into the room. Mike, can you come back to the cell, please? I asked. There's a huge spider in here and I'm scared. The men laughed at me.
"Go on, Mike," they said. "Better go save your girl from the big scary spider."
When we got back to the cell, Mike looked at me.
"So where is the spider?"
"There is no spider," I replied. "I just said that to get you away from them. Why are you being friends with criminals?"
"Don't worry,"
replied Mike.
"We're going to be getting out of here on Monday. I just wanted to say goodbye to my friends."
Mike was right. We were soon going to be free. No need for me to worry anymore. Monday morning came and we were released from jail. Our friends were all pleased to have us home. Of course, they knew it had all been a big misunderstanding. At least they all knew we would never steal anything. I was lucky enough to get my old job back. In fact, it was as if I'd never been away. Mike wasn't so lucky, though. The restaurant had to replace him. They couldn't wait for Mike to come out of jail. Mike tried to get a job, but no one was interested in employing him once they found out he had just come out of jail. Mike started getting really depressed. He hated that he didn't have money to take me out. I didn't care. I was working, and I could afford to pay for things.
"You're not paying for everything,"
Mike said one evening when I wanted to go out for dinner.
"I'm going to find a job, and then I'll take you out."
Mike stormed out of the house. I thought it was best to leave him alone for the evening. He probably needed some time alone. The next afternoon, I came home from work. I was surprised that I hadn't heard from Mike all day. Normally, if we had a fight, he would always send me a text message or call me. I guess he was still in a bad mood, I thought. I switched on the TV and started watching the news.
"There has been a robbery at the jeweler's in the High Street this afternoon,"
announced the newsreader.
"The thieves wore masks and drove their car straight through the shop window."
My heart sank. That was exactly how the prisoners in jail had told Mike how to commit a robbery. Surely Mike isn't involved in this, I thought. I picked up my phone and called Mike. It rang for a couple of times, then Mike picked up. "Where are you?" I blurted out. "What have you been doing this afternoon?"
"Nothing,"
answered Mike. I had no choice. I decided I would believe Mike. "Come to my house," I said. "I'll cook some spaghetti." I wanted to trust Mike. It was coming up to our 1-year anniversary. I wanted this to be a special time for us. I had it all planned. I was going to book a table for next Saturday at the Italian restaurant in town, the place where we had first met. As we sat eating our spaghetti that evening, I casually told Mike that I fancied going out for dinner next Saturday evening. I didn't want to make a big thing about it. Maybe he wasn't bothered that we had been together for 1 year.
"I'm sorry, I can't," said Mike. "It's my cousin's birthday and I have to go to a family dinner."
I was disappointed, but I didn't let it show. "Oh, that's okay. We will still have fun at the family dinner," I replied.
"Sorry, Zara. It's just for me,"
said Mike. Was he being serious? How could he leave me alone on the anniversary of us meeting? I was so upset. After dinner, we sat watching TV, cuddled up on the sofa. I was still feeling a bit suspicious of what had gone on that afternoon when Mike said,
"Wait here, I'm going to make us a cup of coffee."
He went into the kitchen and left me sitting alone. I looked at his phone. It was on the table beside the sofa and he had left it open. I picked it up and started looking through his messages. I couldn't believe it when I opened a message from someone called Sam.
"We must keep this a secret," Mike had written. "I don't want Zara to find out."
So that was it. Mike had robbed the jewelers with some man called Sam. My heart felt broken, but I wasn't going to say anything until I had more proof. I couldn't let Mike know I had read his messages. I put the phone back on the table and decided to keep quiet. The week went by and Saturday came around. I had seen Mike the night before. He told me how much he would miss me, but would see me again on Sunday. Well, this is a great way to spend your 1st-year anniversary, I thought to myself as I sat on the sofa with a cup of tea. My phone rang. It was Lauren.
"Hey, what are you up to?"
asked Lauren. "Nothing at all," I replied.
"Okay, I'm coming to take you out,"
she said. 30 minutes later, Lauren was knocking on my door. I opened the door, and her face fell when she saw how upset I looked.
"What's the matter with you?"
asked Lauren. I didn't want to tell her that I thought Mike had robbed the jewelers, so I said, "I think Mike is cheating on me." Lauren laughed.
"Oh, Zara, you silly thing," she said. "Mike loves you. Of course he isn't cheating on you."
"But he's been so secretive recently," I replied. Lauren told me to get my new dress on since she was going to take me out.
"It's my friend's party," she said. "Come on, you are coming out with me."
We arrived at the venue and walked to the entrance. It looked very posh and expensive. I opened the door and heard a big shout. "Surprise!" I couldn't believe my eyes. All of my friends and family were there. Standing at the front of them all was Mike with a big smile on his face.
Happy anniversary,
he said. But I thought you had forgotten, I cried. But the next thing surprised me even more. Mike got down on one knee and said,
Zara, will you marry me?
Yes, of course I will, I replied after a few seconds of stunned silence. Mike explained that he had been so secretive because he had been working and trying to save money to organize this party for me. He had to tell me he didn't have a job so I wouldn't guess what he was up to. He laughed when I told him about the robbery at the jeweler's. I felt silly for thinking he could have been involved. As we sat chatting, a girl came over to us.
Zara, meet Sam,
said Mike.
She's my cousin. She's been helping me plan the secret party.
Suddenly, everything started to make sense. The jigsaw pieces fell into place, and now I realized that Sam wasn't his robber partner. She was his cousin. I sighed with relief and crushed Mike in a bear hug. I'm so glad prison hasn't changed Mike like I thought it had. Our wedding is now only a few weeks away, and I'm so excited. Did you like this video? If you did, please make sure you give it a huge thumbs up and subscribe to this channel.